I've already typed some code in the common control to generate two different random integers between -10 and 10. Now what we want to do is add to this by including a where statement. A where statement just allows us to add some additional control to how these variables are generated. In this case, we're going to add the statement where, and then in a set of parentheses, a plus b cannot equal 0. So exclamation mark equals 0 tells us not equal to 0. Now what this is going to do is make sure that the two random integers that are generated don't sum to 0. We can add different comparisons here. We can make sure that that sum is something greater than 0, something less than 0. If we want it to be exactly equal to 0, we need to make sure we put a double equal sign. If you use a single equal sign, it will sort of throw off your variable creation, so we need to make sure that's a double equal sign. But just to clarify here, the symbols that we can use are exactly equal to, not equal to, less than or equal to, greater than, and greater than or equal to. So we could use any of those comparison statements in that where statement. We may also have a case where we want additional conditions applied to that variable generation. So if we want to make sure that the sum is, let's change this back to not equal to 0. And we want to also include another statement, we would put a double and sign. And then we could include a statement like a cannot equal -1. If for whatever reason we don't want that first variable to be equal to -1. Or we wanted to know that specifically a had to be greater than 0. When you get into using these where statements to generate variables, there is a specific error that pops up that took me personally a while to figure out what it meant. So I just want to look at an example of creating this error and then looking at how we would fix it. So this line of code tells us that we're going to create a single random integer between -10 and -5 with the added condition, so this where statement, our variable a has to be greater than 0. Take a second to think about that, you realize that's going to be impossible. So when we click quick save and preview, we get this statement, where not met in 200 iterations. Now that I figured it out, it seems like that's a pretty obviously telling me that there is a problem with one of my where statements. But honestly, it took me a long time to figure out what that error meant. So what that means is somewhere in your problem, in your variable creation, somewhere in the problem there is a where statement that is either impossible or at least unlikely to occur. So it could be a where statement that is possible. For instance, if we created something like our random variable a is a number between 1 and 10,000, but we want a to be less than 5, that is possible, obviously, but we can still get the error of where not met in 200 iterations. So MyOpenMath just tried to generate that variable a 200 different times, and because the likelihood of a being less than 5 is so small, it was unable to hit it. So if you're including these statements, you want to make sure you click new version multiple times to generate different iterations. And if you get that, look back at your problem and see what you need to fix about that where statement to make this more likely. So for instance, what might make more sense is for a to be less than 5,000. Now we're not getting any error. If we had anything in the question text, we would see an output. But if you do see that where not met, that is telling you specifically to look for one of these where statements and figure out if either your restriction is highly unlikely or altogether impossible.